The House of Vanyr'Thal. Part 2, The Queen's Will. Chapter 1, The Blood Eclipse. The sky dimmed with a hush of finality, the kind that presses on the bones and whispers of things ancient. A thick red veil unfurled across the heavens, painting the moon in blood. The blood eclipse had returned, an omen not seen since the age of ancestors who ruled with steel and sorcery. Cain Vex stood motionless on the balcony of the obsidian citadel, his silhouette sharp against the flickering twilight. Ash clung to his shoulders like a second skin, and his black robes absorbed the last of the sun's warmth. His gaze pierced the horizon, where distant fires hinted at unrest already growing in the outer lands. The air felt brittle, as if the world were holding its breath. This was no ordinary night. This was prophecy. Behind him, a sound barely louder than breath. A whisper made flesh. "The queen is fading," murmured a voice. Cain turned slowly. Merrick, his shadow counselor, stood with eyes rimmed in darkness, tattoos of binding running down his neck. His presence carried the scent of brimstone and old curses. "She does not fade," Cain said with quiet fire. "She waits." Merrick's lips curled. "Then she has waited too long." Cain stepped forward, face grave. The queen, Zalira, was more than ruler. She was the balance between blood and reason, war and wisdom. Her silence had not gone unnoticed. The land stirred. Alliances cracked. Beasts that had slumbered under her command began to rise. Still, Cain believed. "Silence is not surrender," he said, eyes back to the moon. "It's the pull before the storm." Chapter 2, The 13th Sigil. The judgment chamber, once a place of sacred unity, now reeked of distrust and age. The air sizzled with magic, the floor carved from obsidian shot through with veins of silver. 12 high lords of the ancient vampire houses formed a circle, each sigil hovering before them like a frozen flame, symbols of power forged in blood. But there was an empty space. A 13th. Cain stepped into the center. The temperature dropped. His presence was unwelcome, yet none could deny his right. "Blasphemy," spat the representative of House Valor. "Madness," sneered House Draylen, the old wolf. Cain unsheathed his blade, long, dark, humming with ancestral memory, and drove it into the floor. "Love," he said. Gasps echoed. Magic flickered. "She was queen not by conquest," he continued, "but by balance." Zalira held chaos in one hand, mercy in the other. "You've forgotten that." "I haven't." One of the lords, ancient beyond reckoning, leaned forward. "And if balance breaks?" Cain met his eyes. "Then the abyss wakes." The chamber fell silent. The elders did not support him. But neither did they oppose him. Behind Cain, the 13th sigil flared to life, an emblem once erased by betrayal, now reborn. Cain Vex no longer stood as a relic. He was a reckoning. Chapter 3, The Queen's Last Tear. The crypt beneath the Hall of Moons breathed frost and silence. Statues of queens long dead lined the path, their stony eyes cast downward in sorrow or shame. At the end stood a pedestal bathed in moonlight, and atop it, a crystal tear. The tear of remembrance. Cain approached with reverence. To touch it was to invite agony. The relic only yielded truth to those worthy. Blood streamed from his eyes the moment his fingers closed around it. A voice bloomed in his mind. "Zalira's." "I saw the end," she said, her tone neither fearful nor resigned. "A child born not from womb, but from will. He drinks light and casts shadow. He is the future." Cain knelt, absorbing her vision. He saw fire devouring cities, rivers reversed in time, a throne made of glass. "And me," he whispered. "You will die," she replied, "or become what even death dreads." The vision shattered. Cain collapsed. Around him, the air buzzed with the remnants of her farewell. He did not weep because he feared her fate. He wept because she had planned beyond it. Chapter 4, The Pact of Crows. The southern wastes of Kerith bore no life, only cinders and wind. Yet in its heart stood a crumbling monastery where the crows dwelled, monks cloaked in silence, chroniclers of the world's last breath. Cain entered without announcement. They sensed him before he crossed the threshold. He spoke a single name. Zalira. The eldest bowed. The others followed. None asked his purpose. They knew. He gave his arm willingly. One crow etched runes into his flesh with obsidian needles. Symbols of resurrection, revolt, remembrance. You will walk through death, the elder intoned, but not return unchanged. Cain bore the pain without sound. I already have, he said. And the pact was sealed. Chapter 5, The Whisper of Wolves. The dire wolves of Elnor were not beasts. They were memory incarnate, older than men, older than even vampire kin. They roamed the blood-pine forest, answerable to no throne. But they remembered her. Cain came alone, fireless and unarmed. They met him with fangs and growls, encircling him beneath a moon as pale as bone. He did not speak. He fought their alpha, bare hands, bare soul. He lost, but he did not yield. The wolves sniffed his wounds, their eyes catching echoes of her kindness. They howled not in warning, but in mourning. And then, in allegiance. Zalira's blood lived in Cain, not through lineage, but through loyalty. And the pack knew it. Chapter 6, When Silence Breaks. They knew it. The elders had seen hints, felt whispers, but until that moment, they hadn't truly understood. Cain could have ended them, every house, every sigil, every legacy, in the time it took to draw breath. And now, he would show them. Cain lifted a single hand. The judgment chamber darkened, every torch snuffed by unseen force. The silver veins in the obsidian floor twisted upward like veins in flesh, rising and reforming, forming shapes, sigils, then crumbling. The ceiling cracked, but held. The lords rose, fearful. One tried to speak, another tried to flee. Cain blinked. Time stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Only his queen moved beside him, her voice like wind through glass. They must remember. Cain nodded once. He whispered a single syllable. The chamber became a void. Space twisted. The vampire lords screamed without sound as they were pulled through realities, one where the sun rose inside the citadel, one where they were dust before birth, one where they ruled nothing but the silence of their own regret. Then, it ended. They stood where they had always stood. No time had passed, and yet they fell to their knees, not because they were commanded, but because their souls knew they had been unmade and returned only by mercy. You question justice, Cain said, his voice soft. Now you remember its shape. Chapter 7, Ashes to Rain. The chamber remained still. No defiance remained. Cain and Zalira turned without another word, robes sweeping the silver-etched obsidian like tides in retreat. Outside the chamber, the skies churned with echoes of power just spent. Lightning whispered Cain's name. Zalira's shadow walked a half-step ahead, then fell beside him, equal, eternal. They did not speak of what had passed. They did not need to. Because the summons had come. Chapter 8, The Queen of the Damned. Now. The court had shifted. Time moved forward again. The throne stood twin-tall in a grand sanctum carved from bone and crystal. The Queen of the Damned lay slain, her body untouched by decay but abandoned by soul. Cain and Zalira arrived, draped in silence. The court that once roared with politics now trembled with caution. Even the guards stood statuesque, breathing through clenched teeth. A spectral judge floated forward, a wraith of law bound by ancient command. Justice comes. Determine if punishment follows. Cain stepped forward, hand out. The remnants of the queen's last thoughts pooled into his palm, swirling like a dying star. He saw betrayal. Not hers. He saw sacrifice. Not failure. Zalira approached the corpse and whispered a song of old blood. Her hands glowed with light forgotten by time. A single phrase passed between them. She chose mercy. Cain looked to the court. Then we shall not choose vengeance. Judgment passed. Punishment denied. And in that moment, all the vampire kingdoms understood, justice did not mean wrath. It meant Cain and Zalira. Chapter 9, of Fire and Reverence. Between past and present, there had been fire. Cain and Zalira strode through a city raised by arrogance. A faction of bloodless acolytes had claimed heresy as divinity, rising in the queen's silence. They made it 5 days. Cain descended from the air like falling midnight, his hands alight with ghost fire. With every step, foundations cracked. Statues wept. Magic fled. Zalira followed, her voice summoning storms inside the bones of the earth. Her crown bled starlight, and wherever she cast her gaze, illusions died screaming. The rebels burned without fire, their souls unthreaded. Not to punish, but to remind. The queen still ruled. And her king was always watching.